I'm Chuck Gilmore with Power to Sing. This is broadcast number 6, and it's about falsetto. In fact, the title of our discussion today is falsetto bad? And there are many people I got this comment from one of my subscribers who said, one of the problems that SLS has, speech level singing has, is they say that falsetto is bad. And I wanted to talk about that, and I want to divide this up into several different sections. Number one, let's talk about anatomically what is falsetto. Number two, where does falsetto resonate? Number three, how is it different from head voice? And number four, what are the strengths and limitations of falsetto? Thank you, Art. Turn the monitor off. Yes, that was a good tip. Okay, so let's anatomically, what's happening when the vocal cords, when you go into falsetto, is the vocal cords separate and they come apart. And so you'll hear someone talking, and all of a sudden, really happens a lot with teenage boys when they're going through their vocal change. Their vocal cords all of a sudden come apart, and they're trying to get them to stay together. It's embarrassing, but what's physically happening is the vocal folds are actually just popping open, and it allows more air to pass through, and you lose a certain kind of resonance in the bottom. And so if I were to say, if I were to just be in falsetto and try and go down into my chest voice with the vocal cords apart, I would start up here. And eventually they have to come back together again. So anatomically, what's happening is the vocal cords pop open, and there's much more air that escapes as a result. And there's another thing that happens with resonance, and that is you lose the bottom overtones, and you can hear it. If I'm in just a regular chest voice, and then I go into falsetto, no matter how hard I press into it, I don't get any of that bottom until the vocal cords come back together again. And you can hear it. And for me, it sounds like a yodel. Years ago, Johnny Weissmuller played Tarzan in the movies, and he had this famous Tarzan cry, which I could do as a kid. I remember doing this. I felt so cool. But it's harder to do now that my voice has changed. But if I just said, I'm not going to do this into the microphone, so let me get away from it here and say, how's that sound? All right? So that's Johnny Weissmuller did a lot better than I did. But it's disconnecting the vocal cords into falsetto and back into chest, and into falsetto, back into chest, and you get that little Tarzan call. It's a yodel. So the vocal cords anatomically are separated. When you're in chest voice or in head voice, the vocal cords remain together. So it's harder for me to separate these cords when I'm in head voice. But let me just show you, these are connected head voice. And the chords are together. But if I said, I don't know if you can hear the difference. I can feel it. If I came down, I'll show you. So I was in falsetto. Head voice. They were connected, so I didn't have to reconnect them as I went down. So whether in chest voice, whether in the middle there, or in head voice, the vocal cords anatomically are adducted. They're together. And in terms of vertical, if these were the vocal cords, and this was the bottom of the chord structure, and this is the top. The falsetto is just it's just barely utilizing this top part of the vocal folds, and there's quite a bit of air escaping here. Now, so that's so is it good or bad? Well, let's talk about the let's go on to where it resonates, and let's talk about head voice versus chest voice, and then I'll talk about good or bad. Where does falsetto resonate? Well, fundamentally, it resonates in the same place as the head voice, so it resonates more in the head. Now, I can be on a note that's normally chest. Oh, that's the B below middle C. Oh, and I can feel a little vibration here in my chest. But you can hear that most of the tones, overtones, are very heady. But really, when we think of falsetto, we think of it as up high, up where the head registers, or where the pitch is for head is located. So here's the G above middle C. Ah, and that's right where my head voice resonates also. Ah, falsetto. Ah, ah, head voice. So what makes it so challenging is because it resonates in the same place. It fundamentally, at first especially, you almost can't tell whether you're in chest voice or head voice. Now, one way I can tell if I'm in, I know the feeling of disconnect, because I disconnect it. I open the vocal cords, and now I know I'm in falsetto. Now I know I'm in head voice. So I can feel the difference. I don't know if you can hear the difference or not. It'd be interesting to know. But with the vocal cords up, so they resonate in the same location. In other words, the resonance for falsetto and head voice is in the same location, and that is fundamentally above the soft palate or above the hard palate, up into the head voice, the nasopharynx, which is just a space up behind the nose in this area, and that's the same place that falsetto resonates. So one of the reasons why it's sometimes hard for us at first to tell the difference is, especially if we're just listening to it, is that it's resonating in the same space. I remember when I kind of first was discovering all this in my very first lesson with one of my SLS teachers was, what is that? What is that sound? He said, that's your head voice. I didn't know. I'm just trying to define it myself. Yes, Arthur, I'm going to talk in a minute. I'm going to talk about the flip falsetto vocal type and how it relates to this falsetto voice. Head voice. I can support, if we're talking about support as far as a low breath, pulling the tummy in. The question that Agostino is asking is, head voice is more supported. And if we're talking about breath support or diaphragmatic breathing, I think I can be pretty supported in falsetto as well, and be quite loud. I'm getting a lot of, I'm pulling taking the low breath, pulling my tummy in, and sending a lot of air up there. Now, if I have my head voice in the same, that's the high B. There is a certain aspect of that diaphragmatic breath that's leaning and kind of pressing against the vocal folds. I can feel it. And so I would say that in a way, head voice is supported as in terms of being supported against the adducted vocal folds. So the cords are together, and so the air is coming up from the lungs, and I can feel that press of air against the vocal folds. Sorry, I've got just radical congestion today. It's getting worse as the day goes along. And so it's supporting the condition of the adducted vocal folds. So in that case, it is. Whereas support, if I send a lot of air to a falsetto, to my falsetto vocal cords, which are really basically just barely coming together at the top here, and it's letting a lot of air out. Really, all it's doing for me is just sending more air out. It's just projecting more air, even though it's the same low diaphragmatic breath. So I would say yes, head voice is more supported in terms of there's more lean, there's a little more gentle compression of air against the vocal folds that I can feel. That's not a very scientific answer, and I don't really know all the science behind it, but I can tell you what I feel, and that is I feel the air leaning against the adducted vocal folds, and it does provide some support, and it does provide some anchoring. Whereas in falsetto, it just pushes more air through the vocal folds. I'm going to come back to some of these other questions. Now, falsetto and head voice resonates in the same location. That's up in the head. Try and resonate falsetto in chest, and it just fades out. Finally, by around the B flat A below middle C, it just won't go any further down, and you have to reconnect the vocal folds. Oh, that's the A below middle C. Oh, 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 that's the G. I can't even say words. Oh, the vocal cords really want to come together then. And I've been told that's about the same for the female voice as well, interestingly enough. I really haven't had a student try it for me. But I've heard contraltos, female contraltos, it sounds like they're absolutely in falsetto. It's just there's no bottom in it because the overtones are not there for the chest. So now, how is head voice different from falsetto? Primarily, it's this condition of the vocal folds. With the vocal folds, they are more firmly connected. They are firmly connected in the chest voice. In chest and head, no matter what. The falsetto, they come apart. Now let me just show you. If I'm in head voice, I'm going to start down in chest. Oh, I'm in head voice. Oh, and you can hear that's all one line. It's just it's connected. My voice is connected because the vocal folds are staying adducted. They're staying together. Now, if on the way up I disconnect into falsetto, see, they have to reconnect. So as far as how it's different from head voice will blend into the chest region and into the chest register, and falsetto does not blend. It has to clunk back into a connection of some sort, and you can hear it and feel it. Did you hear that? Well, head voice doesn't do that. So that's one difference. The other thing I mentioned is the vocal cords are staying adducted, or staying together, so the cords haven't separated. Head voice, the cords remain adducted. In falsetto, they have come apart, broken apart. You can feel a break, you can feel a disconnection when you're doing it. And so that's another difference. A similarity is that they resonate, or it vibrates fundamentally in the same location, because usually it's up in your head register. The pitches are up higher. And so it tends to vibrate up here, especially as the higher you get. What are the strengths and limitations of falsetto? Well, one of the things that falsetto does, it helps you understand what it really feels like to have this freedom of your voice, this ease of tone production. And so if a student is really, really muscled up and really tight, and they just can't relax and let some release occur in their voice, falsetto is a way at least they can feel that. So if I said, let's say we're just doing an exercise on if I won't relax and pull my chest voice up, some students never really understand what it feels like to have this freedom. And so falsetto gives them the sense of how easy and light it can feel, and how relaxed, and how there's no pressure. Well, the only problem with that production is you can't use it. You can in some places, but generally speaking, we want more power than that, right? There are places it can be used, as well as light head voice. But the limitation for falsetto there, the strength is its limitation. The strength is that it releases the tension, it releases the pressure, but it also doesn't give you a lot of power unless I can make a lot of noise, but it's a different kind of power. I don't know where I would use that. I don't know where I would use that in a song. Well, I mean, for me, most of the songs that I would maybe end on a big note are like the G, F sharp, and G, just because of my register and what songs I sing. It just doesn't work. And the limitation of falsetto is because the vocal folds have already kind of separated. If I press down on it, I can't get any strength. I can't feel. It doesn't build. I can't build any power into that. Whereas if I'm in head voice, even if it's light, you can feel that as I press, it gets deeper down into the vocal folds. My head voice, if I'm connected, so I'm getting deeper into those vocal folds. Whereas falsetto, it just doesn't go down deep into it. So that's one limitation of falsetto, is that I can't build power into my voice. And so one of the important things about the pedagogy that I teach is I'm trying to help everyone feel the release and the freedom of head voice, connected vocal cords, but that it's light and free. That's connected head voice. And so a lot of people, that's all they can do at first, because it takes a little bit of time before you can say, no. It takes a little time to be able to press down into it without pulling the chest voice up. So a lot of people who tried that early on, mama, and then they all of a sudden they're grabbing, and they grab the vocal cord, and the vowel splats, and the larynx comes up, and now it's just pulled chest. Whereas where this head voice will lead, connected head voice. So this is one of the strengths of head voice, is that you can build power into it. It's not perfect today, but no. So the other strength is not only can you build power into your head voice, it will blend as you go back down. You don't have to switch from falsetto into your head voice. So that's another strength of head voice, is it will blend into the bottom. And so it will you can still be as lovely and as beautiful and as light and airy, and there's no pressure like falsetto. But with the vocal cords adducted, you can also build power, strength, and volume into it, and it will blend into the bottom. So I don't see any real, frankly, I don't see any real value of falsetto, because I can be just as light and free with head voice as I can falsetto. When I can't do that, I can't go down like that in falsetto, and I can't build in the strength and power into falsetto that I can in head voice. So now, another thing that I've been taught, I don't know that this is scientifically documented, but if a vocalist, this is particularly true with women, but if the women have been singing in falsetto all of their lives, you do blow a lot of air through the chord structure. The vocal folds haven't been activated fully because they're not in the full depth of their chord structure. And it's easier for a female voice as it ages to develop this wobble sound if they've been in falsetto all their lives and haven't had adducted vocal folds. If I go in if I'm singing in falsetto all of my life, I'm just not. It's like I don't know how to describe it other than you get flabby and you lose control. You can. It just gets this wobble in their voices, and then they can't sing solos anymore, and they don't want them in the choir, because this big wobble is prevalent over all the other choir members and so forth. It's not necessary. That's not inevitable. It's not inevitable if you learn to get in head voice and stay adducted, and you work your voice in that condition. So if through the years as you age, you're able to keep your vocal folds adducted and work head voice, middle, and chest, then you're in much better condition as you age, which is important to me right now, because I'm not going to have that wobble develop. Now, wobble will also develop if it's been over. There are other causes of wobble than just the being in falsetto, but that's from what I've been taught. And I asked Seth Riggs about this particular question early on, is what's the downside of falsetto, particularly for the female voice? And he said it develops into a wobble over the years, and it doesn't blend in the chest. Pretty simple. Okay, let me just address a couple other questions here, and we'll see if I've been able to shed some light on this. So a head voice compared with, okay, let me come back to flip falsetto in a second. How does head voice feel? It feels as light and easy and free as the falsetto. But for me personally, I can also tell when I'm in falsetto, because there's this, I have this physical sensation. I just know it's falsetto, and the only way I can illustrate that to you, I can't really describe it. I can just show you that if I'm in falsetto, it feels like I can't get back into chest without clicking back in. Oh, you hear that. Now, so in head voice, though, oh, the opposite is true. I can tell I'm in head voice because I can disconnect. Oh, there I've gone into falsetto because I've disconnected. Oh, then I have to reconnect back in. So you can tell you're in, you can tell you're connected. I have to qualify that. On certain notes, you can tell you're connected because if you can disconnect, right? Oh, so I'm connected. Oh, that's the middle C. Oh, and I can disconnect into falsetto. So I know I was connected because I can disconnect. And I can only do that so high, and then I can't disconnect easily. Here's the G. Oh, now you probably can't hear it, but I could feel. I knew that I was disconnecting, and now you hear my Mickey Mouse voice. If I were in head voice, oh, and stayed in it. Even when I'm speaking, I've got more bottom in my voice than when I do it. Oh, there's my, I don't know, it sounds kind of the same. Anyway, it gets a little bit harder to tell when you're higher. So how does it feel? It feels light. It feels effortless. It feels like I can go powerful if I need to. I can press into it. Whereas in falsetto, I can press, but I don't get the press in the bottom. You can hear. With head voice, you can swell. Yeah. I mean, I can swell with falsetto. But but I can't really press down into it like. There's just more bite to it. Can you hear the difference in that? Is singing lightly in head voice preferable to falsetto since the connection is constant, dynamics more control? Yes, I think so. I think that's a great comment. It's absolutely, I hope that's been illustrated today. When we are thinning the vocal cords, we go into head. So when we do nays, we go into head territory. Let me come back to that. Let me first of all address flip falsetto and head voice. If I say, there's two vocal types where falsetto is manifested. And it's manifested in the, obviously in flip falsetto. See, I did flip into falsetto there, and I wasn't even pulling chest. I just switched over to falsetto. A lot of singers will do that. And so the flip falsetto is a singer that starts out in chest. They just flip into falsetto because they know they can get through that. Another place where flip falsetto, or where the falsetto manifests itself, is the other vocal type is pulled chest high larynx, because they're pulling so much weight that the only thing the vocal cords can do is break apart. So I didn't quite make that as distinctive as easy. It wasn't quite as easy to hear. Let me try and do that again. I'll try and do it more distinctive. So why did I flip? Well, I was pulling the chest voice up so high, the larynx was going up, that it caused the vocal folds to separate, to break apart. So there's two places where in vocal types the falsetto occurs. The full pull chest, high larynx. I can't tell you how many times where I have somebody doing the vocal test where they're just going to town and it's just like it's just like that. Um, they get up there and it just breaks apart and they go into that falsetto, or at least that crack they're trying to reconnect. And then that second place is the flip falsetto, where you just even if you're not pulling up your chest voice, you just switch over to falsetto. A lot of female voices do that because it's just what they've been trained a lot of times. Now, let me go back to, I want to talk about a strength and a weakness also. If you have, so is it good or bad? Is one of the questions. Is falsetto good or is it bad? I only think it's really bad if you have to sing it in falsetto. So you'll hear some singer go along and all of a sudden they break into falsetto. Well, I think that's bad if they have to. Why? Because it's a limitation. It's the only way they can do it. It's because they can't do it in head voice because they don't know how to bridge. They don't know how to bridge into head. That's when I think it's bad. Other than that, it's just if you choose to do falsetto, fine. Choose to do falsetto. And it's usually for a stylistic choice. I think a good example of that is, what is it, the song Angel by Sarah McLachlan? Is that the name of the piece? So, and I think she chooses to use that flip as stylistic. It's kind of cool. I think it's a great song. Now, I don't know this for sure because I don't know her voice, but I think I've heard her sing other songs where she doesn't do that all the time. So I'm guessing it's a choice that she makes. And so I don't think it's a weakness if you're choosing to do falsetto or a limitation. But if you have to do it that way because you can't bridge, you can't get into your head voice, then you're limited. And I think it's bad at that point because your voice is limited. You don't have the full faculty, you don't have the full facility of your voice. Okay, how did you find your head voice? Bernard, that's a great question. Let me go back one more. When we were thinning the vocal cords, when you go into head voice, the vocal cords have to drop some weight. If something doesn't happen here, I'm just going to pull if I sing like that all evening long, I'm going to be hoarse. So something has to happen. We have to, as the pitch goes higher, the vocal cords have to drop some of the weight. Some of the vibrating element has to be thinned and reduced. The mass has to reduce. And then I can get into my head voice. I did not know how to do that, so I'm kind of answering two questions at one time. So I found my head voice by several different ways. And one of them was using that little bratty nay, nay, nay. Nay. So if I said nay, 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 that's not thinning the vocal cords. So by just doing that little puppet voice, that little bratty witchy voice, nay, 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 nay. By doing softer and just staying the little bratty witchy sound helps keep the vocal folds together. Nay, 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 nay. I'm getting that connection now. I'm passing from chest up into my head voice. Well, so that's not actually how when I first felt it, I did this. That's how I found it. But I knew that I knew I had not gone into falsetto because I can feel it crack when I go into falsetto like that. So I thought, what was that? What was that? And there was another thing that I did. That's when I first started doing speech level singing or discovering with Seth Riggs how to do that. That's the first thing I did is I went from chest up into head voice and back down again without disconnecting. And why does that work? Is because this bubble keeps the larynx down so the vocal cords don't pull apart. And also it kind of mixes you up. It kind of confuses you because you're doing something new and different. And you're not thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to kill me. So that's how I discovered my head voice. And now we can't sing our songs that way, right? So, but what we're doing is we're laying down a new neural network, a new feedback mechanism to help us begin to feel that, oh, I just went up there without disconnecting. I went up to this new feeling, this new place. You can feel the resonance move up into your head. You can feel it come back down again, and starts introducing what's possible now with words. That's how I first discovered my head voice. And now, there are other ways to thin the vocal folds. And the nay, nay, nay is just one of them. The other way to thin the vocal cords, vocal folds, chords, you can use those terms interchangeably. If you're, I think the professional, the scientists refer to them as folds, and the doctors maybe, but I call them vocal cords. They're really not chords, it's tissue, but is to do this dopey sound. Geek, 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 geek. Sorry, let me just start it right here. Geek, 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 geek. And that's another thing I discovered too, using that dopey imposed sound. I'm basically, instead of, so the bratty nay is a little bit of a high larynx, but it's not like, it's not as high as pulling up the chest voice. So it's a little bit high, and the dopey sounds is stretching the chords, thinning the chords a little bit, but the opposite way, pulling them down. In both cases, in the bratty nay and the dopey key sound, you want to get rid of that once you're able to move. Really, that's what those are all about, is just connecting chest to head without it cracking or breaking. Once you're able to start doing that, then you can back away from those specialty, those temporary sounds, the bratty sound or the dopey sound, because we don't want to really sing like that. Is singing lightly, let me just read a couple of these other, is singing lightly in head voice preferable to falsetto? I think we've talked about that. I think it is. What I was explaining was you can go to the Knowledge Center on the website, and you go to the website, take the vocal test, then go to the Knowledge Center and watch the videos about your vocal type. They will help. The exercises for your vocal type of pulled chest, high larynx, and flip falsetto will help you get through from chest to head voice without cracking, without breaking, without going into falsetto. So that's what those are designed to do. I'm glad that you've enjoyed the course. That whole course, Sing Higher Than Ever Before, is all about going from chest into head without having to break or crack. And hopefully, Augustino, you've learned something about the bridge, the vocal bridge. And that's like the whole secret to this. And so the exercises and all the information in Sing Higher Than Ever Before is really designed to help every person go from chest to head, discover their head voice, and be able to do that successfully, which for me changed everything about my voice. Because everything I've shown you today, I couldn't do that 20 years ago. I just turned I'm 63 and a half, and I was 43 when I learned. It was about this time of year, November, age 43 in November, when I went to my first workshop and learned how to do this. All right, well, thank you very much. All the best to you. Thanks for joining me. I'm not going to try the music to exit out. I'm just going to say, thanks for joining Power to Sing. You can sing higher with beauty, confidence, and power. I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thanks.